Hello Year 10, just wanted to go through the slides that we did in our session while you were at school. This is for anyone who's unfortunately not been able to come in, or if you just want a quick recap about what we went through because you maybe missed something, or you just want to double check and make sure you've got everything in place. So where are we in the course? We are just over halfway through, which is great in terms of assignments. As you know, you've already done Component 2 Learning Aim A, which is the bike brake. You've almost finished now your Component 2 Learning Aim B multi-tool, and we've got Learning Aim C to do, which is reproduction of the spanner part of the multi-tool. So as long as we are able to do practical, then that's what we'll be aiming for after we've completed the multi-tool. The importance of the multi-tool, it's going to hopefully teach you about a bit of planning when you're disassembling components. And as the title of the assignment says, you're investigating an engineered product. Okay, so it's all about your investigation techniques and how you find out relevant information about that product before putting it in the assignment. You should hopefully also gain a bit of understanding of the components that make up that assembly, and then how they all work together, how they are used in that assembly, and then that will hopefully benefit you moving forward. We also touch on using revision guides, and I'll go through a tutorial at the end of these slides. So the multi-tool disassembly, as it states in the brief for this assignment, you need to disassemble the multi-tool systematically. Now, systematic disassembly is one that has a procedure for you to follow. So you're having a system of taking apart that product. So of these two examples, the one on the right is taken apart and then they're grouped in the types of the components that they are. That one is great for understanding what's actually in the assembly as a collection of components, but it's going to make it really difficult for you to put that back together based on that information alone. So what I'd like you to work off is a disassembly like the one on the left, and that is done just by taking it apart exactly how it would be put together. So what you're going to have for this to help you, because you'll need to do a disassembly just like this, is Mr. Woodcock is going to put together a video demonstration of how to disassemble your multi-tool systematically and lay it out correctly before taking a photo. Now, those of you that would have been in my session, I actually did this in the lesson a little bit, just to give you a couple of pointers, like having the tool up a certain way so that the nuts are on the top of the tool rather than the bottom, and then you can hold it together securely while you loosen the bolts and then take it apart very carefully. Okay, so this is just laid out from right to left, starting with the nuts and then the outer cases and then all the components on the top and bottom rails depending on which bolt they came from, and it's laid out exactly how you take it apart. Okay, that way all you need to put it back together is just do the reverse of your disassembly, and it's in the correct order already, just starting from left to right. Okay, so it's important that you have your own disassembly. You do this yourself with the multi-tool that you've been given, and then you take a photo of it that looks very similar to the example we've given you. You then need to number them the same as this example, and then also match up the numbers of the components on your component description pages to be the same. So numbers 1 to 6 are Allen keys, and then your first page of your component descriptions will be component 1 to 6, Allen keys, and then you'll describe the Allen keys with the table and the written description and the photograph. Okay, moving on. This is what your first slide is going to look like. So you're going to have a piece of writing on the left hand side, and that's going to tell you how you've disassembled your multi-tool. So that is just a quick explanation about what you did in detail to disassemble a multi-tool. So you will describe the steps you took in order to take it apart. You will say that you did it systematically by carefully removing the nuts on the top of the outer casing and then holding them securely while you then place them out in the same order that you took them apart, so that you're able to put it back together. So it's a good idea for you to include all the steps you took and then justify why you did it that way. On the right hand side, you're going to have an exploded drawing, which you've already got, that was already in the assignment document. And then you're going to have underneath that your numbered and labelled disassembly photograph from the disassembly you're going to do of your multi-tool. You've then got your component descriptions. Now, most of you have already done these, which is brilliant, so well done. On these, you're just going to have all of the information put together by putting it into this table. All of this information has been provided to you in a knowledge organiser we've put together. Now, of the packs that you've took home or have been delivered to you shortly, if you weren't able to come in, it's printed in colour, it's A3, so it'll be folded in half, and it's got borders around each of the bits of information that are orange. In the centre, on one side, you've got an exploded diagram with all of the numbers on the components, and then underneath that you have a component list. Now, on that list are all the components, their functions, the materials, the manufacturing processes. Okay, all of that information that you need to put in the table is there. Okay. If you need any of the weights of the components, there's also another table for that too. So you're just filling in those. Okay, in the lesson we did go through a couple of examples. Now, the written description of the component is the information that you put in the table, but just explained in full sentences. So, for example, the bolts have been black japanned. Now, that's a coating which is made from an oil solution that is applied when the component is heated up, so that it's red hot. It's then quenched in the oil solution, and it is then coated on the bolt. Now, that's done to give it a smooth black colour and also prevent corrosion. So you would explain that is why that's happened. You would also explain about the function, say how the degradation occurred. That would be, for the bolt specifically, the degradation would be that the components rotate around the bolt as it's used, and also you would have Allen keys going into the end of the bolt to tighten or loosen it, which would promote wear due to the hardness of the tool you're using. Okay, so that is just an explanation of all the information you've put in the table for each component. Now, the product design specification. A product design specification is simply specifying what a product should do or should be. Okay, so you're giving guidelines to whoever's manufacturing that product as to how it should perform, how it should be created, the size of it. Okay, everything that decides how that product is, you're specifying how that should be. Okay. Now, to complete your product design specification, and this is already on Google Classroom for you as a slide document ready for you to complete, you need to read the questions that are in red underneath each of the headings. Think about your multi-tool, have a look at it, and see how that question relates to the product. How does it relate to your multi-tool? You're then going to write your answers underneath the questions, but in white, not red. And then when you've completed your answer, you will delete the questions. And that is going to give you a body of work that is well structured and has all of the relevant information for each specification point relevant to the multi-tool. All right, so here's an example. For your introduction, these are the questions that you will need to answer. Okay, they're in red, they're underneath the introduction heading. So first step is to read those. Then you will write your answer for each of those questions underneath. Now for the introduction, I've put them all together as one paragraph of writing. But I've answered all of those questions in there. I've stated what I'm going to write about. I'm going to write a product design specification for the bicycle multi-tool. Pretty simple. What should it be able to do? The tool should be able to perform multiple maintenance operations on a bicycle, such as removing axles, wheels, tightening or loosening other components, such as brake discs, calipers, brake pads, etc. And you can see where we go from here. You answer all of the questions in red, and then delete the questions. So after you've finished it, it should look like this. You have no red questions left, and you have the answer underneath the heading. Now keep the headings in there, makes it easy to understand what the specification points are about. Moving on to the rest of the specification points in your product design specification, you have introduction, which we've talked about already. You have size and mass requirements. And what's important to note here is that I would like you to number each of the specification points after the introduction. So size and mass requirements will be numbers 1, 2, 3, and 4. Product life and reliability will be 5, 6, 7, and 8. Also important to note, if you do figure out any other specification points that you feel are relevant to the multi-tool in any section, add a number in. It's not a problem. Performance, function, and service requirements, 9 and 10. Economic and making considerations, 11, and implications of standards and legislations. Now, of those categories that we've mentioned, one that I think is important to give you a bit more information on are the implications of standards and legislations. Now, there are two types of standards that we think are relevant to the multi-tool product. One being British standards, and the other being CE certification. Now, British standards are a set of standards that are given to or applied to a new product in order to be sold in Great Britain. They are health and safety standards, and they certify a product as being safe use for its intended use in that particular market. Same can be said for CE certification, and you'll see these on a variety of products. CE being more relevant across Europe, okay, rather than just Great Britain. So you might need to do a little bit of research on those two types of standards, and then see how they relate to the multi-tool. Do they need to be certified by either of those? It's a bit of extra work on your part, but it's important for you to understand how they relate to your multi-tool. Okay, so after you've finished all of those, you will have a completed product design specification with numbered product design specification points for each of the categories. All right, and in some of the sessions we did do a little bit of an introduction just to get you started. Okay, so how do you complete the whole assignment? Your whole assignment is going to look something like this. So you have your introduction page where you say how you disassembled your multi-tool in detail, and your exploded diagram, and your numbered and labelled disassembly. Then you move on to your description pages where you have the table of information along with a photograph of the component in question, a title saying what the component is, and then you have your detailed explanation of the information that you found on that component. This is obviously completed for all the components in the assembly. I would like you all to make sure you have these components in the same order as the component list on the knowledge organizer, which is also the same order as the numbers on the exploded diagram. This way it will look like all of your work has been produced from one source, and it just makes it a lot easier to follow as you go through your assignment. Then you'll have your product design specification. Now, I have no problem with you putting this on your other assignment yourself, but I would like us to wait until we are back in school to do that, just so we can monitor what you've done beforehand. So product design specification, just do that on the separate assignment that I've set on Google Classroom, which is entitled Product Design Specification for Multitool. Right, so you'll have all of those finished. Now, final bit I just want to go through is how to use the revision slide pages. There has been a really good engagement of the revision slide pages, but you need to understand how important they are for your development. A lot of this content that we're going through based on the revision slides is something that could be in your exam. Okay, it all could be in there. So we need to make sure we are thoroughly understanding the concepts that it's going through, and we are practicing them now through the now try this questions. All right. We also need to make a bank of revision notes by making notes from the revision slides on the important information, so that we can go back to it once we continue our exam preparations. So this is what each of your revision slides will look like. First thing you need to do is read the slide. Then on the next slide, so you have a revision slide, then you have a blank slide, and then that is repeated 3 times per week. You need to make notes on the important information on that slide and put it on the next slide. Okay. So all I've done here is picked out the most important information. I haven't typed it out word for word, that would be a waste of time. I've picked out what I feel is important from that page, taken out some of the words that aren't necessary just to make it shorter, and then I've put in bold headings of that information so I understand what that sentence is talking about. All right. That also gives me some key words for this slide so I know what is important about it. All right. After you've done your notes, you need to try answering the now try these questions. Excuse me. You need to answer the now try this questions. Now, these are found at the bottom of the page, and there is a title that says now try this. On your page, underneath your notes, you need to type now try this. Then underneath that, you will put your answer. Now I've circled this in red here. That's what you should be adding underneath your notes. Now try this, followed by your answer to the question. So this question is this. Final design solutions are often a compromise between competing parts of the brief. The electric version of the Alessi bird kettle looks like it fulfills all the requirements of the brief. However, the capacity of the kettle has been reduced from 2 litres to 1.5 litres. Can you suggest reasons why this change was necessary? And all of these questions can be answered from the information that you gain understanding of by reading the slide. The capacity of the kettle has been reduced because it was too big. I made that my answer because I wanted to show you how to add to your answer and change it after the answers come out. If you haven't noticed already, on 1 week we will have the revision slides come out, ready for you to read, make notes, and answer the questions. The following week, you will have the answers for the first week and the revision slides for the next week. After the answers come out, this is what you need to do. Read through the answers, compare them to the answers that you have put on your slides, and then add any corrections to your answers in green. So over on the left-hand side of this slide, this is what it looks like. I have now try this. I've put that underneath my notes to break up the page. I've then put my answer. The capacity of kettle has been reduced because it was too big. After reading the answer, which I've attached in the top of this slide, I have added to my answer in green. Okay, circled in green at the bottom of this page. The heating element, switch and indicator lamp take up some room inside the kettle, therefore capacity is decreased. To keep the outside dimensions the same, the capacity was decreased to 1.5 litres. This also allowed the original aesthetics to be kept. Okay, I haven't typed out the actual answer word for word. I've taken the information from that answer that I feel is important, and I've made a new answer in my own words. All right. What I don't want this to be an exercise of is just you typing out things and copying them out. That's a little bit useless. So if you can read that information, take it in, and then type out your own answer in your own words, that will feel like more of a completion on your part if the answer isn't quite up to standard. All right. Okay. Now overall, this is what it should look like. You have your notes, then and now try this heading with your answer underneath, and then the following week you can add your answers and any changes that you need to be made in green. All right. So why do you need to read the engineering sectors chapters? And that's something I'm just going to touch on quickly before I end this video. And engineering sectors is basically the different areas that engineering happens in. And there's loads of information in the engineering textbook, and we've given you a printout of these pages in the packs that we gave to you in lessons, and these have gone home as well if you weren't able to come in. And there's also a PDF part of the textbook posted by Mr. Duncan on Google Classroom, and I've moved that to the tops of your Google Classroom so you can see them easily. And it'd be really great for you to do a little bit of reading on this, just so you have some background information by the time we come to doing this assignment. Okay. Now, depending on when we can fit in the practical work needed by Component 2 Learning Aim C, we might not be doing this assignment for a while, but it's a written assignment that is meant to help you understand where your engineering journey might go next. So if you're interested in engineering at all, in any context, after year 11, then it's something you need to be thinking about if you haven't already. So the engineering sectors information might give you an idea of what you want to do. And if there is anything else that you need to know more about, feel free to email myself or Dr. Debney, depending on which class you're in, and we can help you with what to do next. All right, we're happy to do that. That's what we're here for. And if you need to know any more about engineering after year 11, please let us know.